No one watching WWE that night had any reason to believe the evening would stray from its typical pattern. It started like any other SmackDown. Familiar faces, usual rivalries, and the electric tension that always lingers in the air, ready to erupt into drama or violence at any moment. But the reality of what unfolded was something else entirely. What began as a standard episode evolved into something legendary, an event so profoundly shocking, so emotionally charged, and so deeply rooted in betrayal and brute force that the WWE Universe is still trying to process it. Roman Reigns' return wasn't just an ordinary comeback. It was a moment that shattered expectations, rewrote alliances, and reminded everyone of the unrelenting brutality that pulses beneath the surface of professional wrestling. And what made it even more unfathomable was the man who stood shoulder to shoulder with him. Brock Lesnar, a name synonymous with carnage, a man feared even by the most elite in WWE, now apparently aligned with the tribal chief himself. For weeks, speculation and concern had consumed the WWE community. Roman Reigns, the undisputed leader of the Bloodline and a dominant force unlike any the organization had seen in years, had vanished. Suspended following a heated and explosive backstage confrontation with high-level WWE executives, Roman had been removed from the spotlight, his absence felt across every segment of the show. Without him, the once unbreakable foundation of the Bloodline began to tremble. Solo Sikoa, loyal yet untested in the role of leadership, tried to maintain control. His efforts were visible, his intent admirable, but the cracks began to show. Jimmy Uso found himself lost in a web of conflicting loyalties, pulled between the desire to uphold his family's legacy and the necessity of survival in an environment where even family can't be trusted. And then there was Paul Heyman. Ever the enigmatic figure, Heyman had built a career not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being the smartest man in any room he entered. Known as the wise man, the mastermind, and the manipulator, Paul had seen champions rise and fall at the direction of his whispered words. His genius in navigating power dynamics made him both feared and invaluable. But in Roman's absence, his loyalties grew murky. The man who had once bowed before the tribal chief seemed to be exploring new strategies, whispering to new ears, and perhaps calculating a future where Roman Reigns no longer held the throne. This ambiguity festered in the minds of fans and superstars alike. Was Heyman still with Roman, or was he plotting the rise of a new king? On the night it all came crashing down, the air in the arena was charged from the moment the cameras began to roll. There had been rumors, whispers in backstage corridors, and cryptic social media posts, all suggesting the possible return of Roman Reigns. But WWE had trained its audience to expect swerves, red herrings, and manipulations. Most assumed these rumors were just that, noise, until the lights dimmed. The crowd reacted first with confusion, then disbelief, and finally with a unified, thunderous roar as the unmistakable opening chords of Roman Reigns' entrance music blared through the speakers. Fans jumped to their feet, phones flew into the air to capture the moment, and the atmosphere shifted from anticipation to stunned. He appeared, not as a returning hero nor a wrong champion reclaiming his place, but as something far more intimidating. A storm cloaked in a man's body. There was no flamboyant entrance, no fireworks, no warm words for the audience. Roman Reigns was all cold fire and silent rage. His eyes betrayed no joy at the ovation he received. They were fixed forward, locked on one target. As he strode down the ramp, methodical and unblinking, he emanated the aura of a man who had come not to participate, but to conquer. Every step was deliberate, every motion precise. He wasn't here to make a statement. He was the statement. Inside the ring, Paul Heyman stood visibly shaken. For a man who had long been the most composed figure in WWE, cool under pressure, articulate in chaos, Heyman looked like he'd seen a ghost. The microphone trembled slightly in his hand. His posture, usually commanding, was now defensive. And then Roman climbed into the ring, and the moment seemed to freeze. The crowd grew silent, sensing the gravity of what was unfolding. Roman didn't address the audience. He didn't acknowledge the cheers or the signs. He locked eyes with Heyman, and the tension in the room skyrocketed. Paul raised the microphone slowly, his voice cracking as he spoke. "My tribal chief," he said, barely above a whisper. "I have waited." The words hung in the air, met with silence. Roman gave no reply, his gaze a blade slicing through Heyman's fragile composure. And then, as if summoned from the very heart of chaos, Brock Lesnar's entrance theme erupted. The arena detonated into unfiltered pandemonium. Screams of shock and awe clashed with gasps and stunned silence. No one could believe what they were witnessing. For years, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar were defined by their blood-soaked wars against each other. Rivals so bitter their matches felt more like gladiatorial clashes than wrestling contests. Their bouts at WrestleMania, their fights for the Universal Championship, their destruction of each other's bodies and spirits. This rivalry was carved into WWE history. And yet, there he was, the beast incarnate, not walking with fury aimed at Roman, but with a different target altogether. Brock's eyes were locked onto Paul Heyman. That's when the realization began to dawn across the faces of fans and commentators alike. This wasn't a confrontation between old enemies. This was a convergence of wrath. Heyman was not merely the man caught in the middle. He was the man at the center of both storms. For Lesnar, Heyman had been an advocate, a strategist, even a friend. For Roman, he had been the wise counsel, the mouthpiece, the believer. Now he was marked as the betrayer by both. The betrayal ran deeper than anyone had imagined. It was not just about divided loyalties. It was about manipulation, about secrets, about playing gods against each other and hoping to survive. Heyman backed away, stumbling into the corner of the ring, his mouth moving soundlessly in desperate pleas. Roman took a single step forward and then another. With each movement, Heyman shrank further. Finally, Roman lunged, grabbing Heyman by the collar with the kind of force that made the crowd gasp. He yanked him forward, his eyes alight with fury, and then Brock Lesnar stepped into the ring. In one seamless motion, Lesnar launched Heyman into the air with a brutal German suplex that sent his former advocate crashing to the canvas with devastating impact. The violence didn't stop there. Roman delivered a Superman punch that landed with sickening precision. Then another, and another. Each strike was heavier, crueler, an exorcism of betrayal. Lesnar followed with more suplexes, each one a reminder of the raw power he wielded. Heyman's body folded under the punishment, his cries muffled by the shock of the crowd. And then came the crescendo, a devastating concerto, with Roman bringing a steel chair down across Heyman's body. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the arena. And then silence. Not the kind of silence that follows a great match, but the eerie stillness of something unnatural, something too real, too final. This was no longer entertainment. This was an execution, a message written not in words but in broken bones and shattered trust. The crowd sat frozen, some with mouths agape, others with tears in their eyes. This was betrayal answered with merciless retribution. This was power reasserting itself in the most primal form. It wasn't just about punishing Paul Heyman. It was about reminding every man and woman in WWE who Roman Reigns truly was, and who he had become.